Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're all doing well, and welcome to this Conquest showdown. It's going to be myself and the Sons of Sigmar facing off against the Tomb Kings, and it is time for a bit of a ranged artillery duel. So as far as my build goes, I figured there would be some Ushopti Great Bows, some Bone Giants, things like that. So I do have the Hammer of the Witches, which is good against all the aforementioned targets. Granted, on this map, my opponent has a little bit of a nice perk, right? He's got this tree line here, so he can park his Ushopti Great Bows on the side and avoid my cannon. So that was a really, really nice positioning for my opponent there. I really like that. Aside from that, we do have the cannon, a couple units of Hawken long rifles. I didn't know if it would be better to go for like just straight up another cannon, but you know, the Hawken long rifles, they do have 260 range, so they can outrange the Ushopti Great Bows if I'm not mistaken. Let's go ahead and double check that. I believe they do, yeah. Wait, that can't be right. That's got to be a bit of a graphic bug. It says the Chosen of the Gods only have 115 range. Yeah, their range is like 200 something. That must just be a placeholder bug or something. That's not right. But the Hawken long rifle is going to be able to put some pressure on the Bone Giants, hopefully, and take down those big threats, which can then force my opponent, hopefully, to come to me where I can feast. We have a Right Wizard with Burning Head. Now, this was a ladder game, and I made a bit of a mistake. I forgot to cut my spells, in case you're wondering, if you guys were playing this on your own. So basically, I'm missing like two or three free units, which is a huge bummer, right? But you would only really take Burning Head and Fireball, and that would give me an extra maybe like 400, 500, 600 gold, so just have an extra 2 spears. Not the end of the world, but mistakes were made. Spearmen, 1 unit of Vampire Knights in the back, a couple Flagellants. I do like this. They're pretty good at just grinding through Tomb King's infantry, and they give you that nice staying power. And we're going with the Master Engineer on the Steam Tank as well. So this guy is a beast, and I figured that he would be able to contribute to the artillery duel situation. So my cannon, my rifles, and his cannon would be very effective at taking down Tomb King's ranged. And then from there, I could use him in melee to clear out skeletons and different things like that. So that is it for my build, except for the Light Wizard. So I do have 1 Light Wizard. He's back here with nets. Figured if there's some backfield pressure, I didn't have a lot of mobility, so I wanted to have some extra nets to secure ground. For my opponent's build here, he's going for the dreaded double Boner Giant, which honestly I've been running into a ton on ladder, and it seems very effective. And is Khalida going to be doing the buff? Yeah, Khalida has the Blessing of Asaf. Very nice. A reload skill, base damage. Very clean stuff. We do have a Necrotect here with the heals, but the initial damage volley does go well for me. The Bone Giant does get pretty beat up, but these things have so much HP, it's easy to forget. And with the buffs coming in from Khalida and the healing from the Necrotech, they're actually able to beat down 1 unit of Hawken long rifles right out of the gates. And I was like, uh-oh, this trade isn't going quite as easily as I thought it would. And on the other side, we do get the Chosen of the Gods coming about face, and they're going to get ready to start unleashing on my Hawken long rifles, most likely. But 1 Bone Giant is down to how much HP? 9,000, so we really haven't made too much progress on this Bone Giant. The Hawken long rifles are connecting, but their DPS isn't quite what I was expecting, so out of the gates, a very, very tough start for the Sons of Sigmar. I would say my opponent is winning this game at this current, initial skirmishing and range trading phase. The Bone Giants with the Blessing of Asaf is very, very cool. But now Khalida is going to be moving up. Looks like she wants to dive into the secondary. Here I do see some sneaky snake cav in the forest, so Necropolis Knights with halberds, not a bad tech against the Empire. These things can do okay work against like Empire Knights, Demograph Knights of the Blazing Sun, Black Rose, whatever. And honestly, not terrible against the Steam Tank either. So, scary situation, but we are getting 1 Boner Giant kind of low. The Hammer of the Witches in the backfield is getting her done, and that is my Spearman. So the Hammer of the Witches has gotten so far 500 value. Not terrible, and the Hawken long rifles have been able to kind of continue their firepower. Big Burning Head going down there does cook those guys. It goes through these guys and does hit me a little bit as well, but overall that was worth it because we just deleted a skeleton unit, which felt pretty good. Wish it had been a halberd, but you can't have it all in life. So I do have my old Flagellants in reserve. Going to be sending them in to intercept my opponent's troopers that are trying to penetrate into the secondary. Meanwhile, these Flagellants are going balls deep for Sigmar. They're putting a big whooping down on these guys here, and my Steam Tank has emerged from the bushes and is going to start running over these units and providing a little bit of support where it can. In the backfield, we do get the Necropolis Knights to begin, and I do net them down with my Light Wizard, and from there, we're going to get some damage on them. The Steam Tank is going to flank them and hopefully shoot its cannon. Spears are moving up, and I do have the Empire Knights in reserve. I don't want them fighting Necropolis Knights. It's not necessarily a great trade for me, but I figured, if I have to, it's better than just getting completely steamrolled here, right? So we get him down to a pretty low amount of health, but the Bone Giants are doing very well. And one really concerning thing for me is the fact that my opponent is going to have a Ushopti summon. So he's going to be able to maybe use that to shut down the Hammer of the Witches, which could be very dodgy. So seeing he's on the retreat, I figured let's take advantage of this. Let's seize the initiative, move forward with the Empire Knights while the spears are still close. So if he does take the fight with me, which would be a bad fight, since those are anti-large halberd cav, the spears would be able to saturate in and maybe, tilt that battle in my favor. I do get my opponent's Lich Priest moving into the secondary, but the Steam Tank Commander is going to be chasing it down, and he hits hard. He's got the cannon on the front. He does also have, I believe the guy on top shoots a Hawken long rifle too. I'm not 100% sure, but we do get in and ram that Lich Priest. My opponent, I think, has 2 casters. Yeah, or no, just 1 in the Necrotech. So here's the Ushopti summon. I felt like I was starting to command this game. I was like, okay, you know, we've gotten some good damage. My Flagellants are seizing ground. But, you know, now this Ushakti summon is a big problem. And yes, I do have a unit of spears on guard duty. But, you know, most players who know what they're doing are just going to be able to spam click nonstop on top of your cannon. So even when you try and retreat the crew like I did, he's going to be able to hunt them down. If I had an Empire Knight guarding it or nearby, I could roadblock them and run through with my crew. But in this case, he's going to be able to butter some bread. So Chosen of the Gods are causing some problems. Here we do win this fight, which is pretty big. So the Necropolis Knight's going to be crumbling down. The Spear is able to get the job done. And as far as the infantry fight goes, it's going well. Here we have a healthy unit of Flagellants beating down these Spearmen. And up in the front, we do get the Steam Tank Commander. I don't know if that was a pigeon bomb, but yeah, this is where it starts to get dodgy once again. So it's been a very back and forth game. There have been moments that have been going well for both of us. My Steam Tank Commander starts getting focused by the Bone Giants. So pigeon bombs being dropped on the Tomb Guards. That was great value. And I got some Empire Knights and Spears trying to saturate in on the Bone Giant, and I was so bummed we didn't kill that Bone Giant. Like 1 or 2 more cannon shots and it probably would have been crumbling, but now my opponent's in a situation where he's got a lot of tools to answer my Master Engineer, and I was like, oh god. I do have the objective, however. My opponent has had some, you know, opportunities to get this. If he had just like moved a single spear over, you know, I was kind of on the back foot. He could have probably captured that from me, but he did not. So that could come back to bite him a little bit later on, since I do have a lot of infantry on the battlefield. Empire Knights and company do saturate into the secondary. But here's a play or a little bit of a tip for you guys. If your units or range units are tied up in melee, especially monster shooting like these Bone Giants, you can simply use the guard mode. So you put them in guard mode, right? And just target and spam click, and they'll shoot regardless of being tied up in melee. So here you can see my Steam Tank Commander in really, really bad shape. Trying to get back to the tree line, and I didn't go for the typical... How did that do 1,400 damage? Oh my god. That was crazy. It had like 1,400 HP. But even still, the more degenerate Empire playstyle is using a Life Wizard with regrowth. But I think that Burning Head is pretty essential in this matchup. So maybe just going with Boris Todbringer could have been a little bit safer, because he could have come back here and probably bullied these Bone Giants. But the tanks are so cool, right? So much fun. Here we see Cleta on the hunt. So Cleta is getting chased by the Bright Wizard, and I'm not sure where she's going. It looks like she's trying to escape my wizard, perhaps. And the objective does belong to the Sons of Sigmar. Spearmen are going to be winning a lot of their fights, and a lot of my opponent's expensive units are tied down here. One Boner Giant did crumble to dust. It was beaten down by the Flagellants. Another Bone Giant, it has a lot of HP, and it does also have the Stone Shaper buff from the Necrotech nearby, so there's a lot of dodgy stuff going on here, guys. And this is anybody's game. Balance power is very, very even. Flagellant's going to be pushing in on top of the Chosen of the Gods, and I'm going to be trying to get these spears past his spears, but unfortunately they do stabilize here, which is unfortunate. And they go back to now to negative 15. Cleta does get trapped up here, so we net Cleta, and Cleta is getting poked by a lot of spears. She does have 3,000 HP, which is, you know, a fair amount. It's going to take a while for these spears to get through that, and 110 armor as well, so very, very dodgy indeed. So at this point I was kind of like, maybe I can win on objectives, maybe, or just grind him down with sheer amounts of infantry. It's not like in Conquest mode, you don't have any sort of attacking rule, so there's an interesting kind of, like, I guess, ebb and flow, I would say, in Conquest mode, where if you manage to secure a massive, you know, advantage on the points, it gives you a lot of room. And here comes a Fireball and Cleta, big damage right there. Just like in Tabletop, Tomb Kings don't like fire. But if you secure the objective, get a massive points advantage, you can kind of be a little bit cagey, right? You don't necessarily have to engage your opponent. Whereas like in traditional land battle, for example, there's attacking rules when there's only SEs left and a certain amount of units have to be attacking. But in Conquest, it becomes a little bit different. The fact that I have this, you know, I would have time to maybe like retreat and build up into magic or different things like that, right? Because the objective is the big variable, which has been really interesting to play with. A lot of the games I play, I would say about 80 to 90% of the games I've been playing on ladder. I've been playing a ton of games on ladder, just trying to like get a feel for the game mode for my upcoming faction war and different things like that. Although the faction war may have already happened by the time this comes out. But I've been trying to get a feel for it. And I would say 80 to 90% of the games, the objective doesn't really even matter. It's just kind of a tertiary thing. Another Fireball does slap Cleta in the face there. Balance of power is coming into our favor a little bit, but my opponent, once he gets his Death Blob together, gets his big terror-causing monster. You know, I have the Lord Dead penalty, so all my units are negative 10 leadership right now, which is really, really bad. And I need to get rid of these Chosen of the Gods. So that's why the Ushapti are really sticking on him, or excuse me, the Flagellants are after him, Spears are after them as well. And it's getting real hog wild. So my Bright Wizard still has a fair amount of winds of magic. Chosen of the Gods ripping some really good shots. My opponent has great micro. He's been playing very, very well. And here he's able to go in guard mode, rip those shots to break those spears. And Cleta, I might just straight up lose the terror, right? Even though I'm ahead on the balance of power, the points are looking pretty good for me, but he can terror out me off this point pretty much non-stop. So we're going to be hunting down the Chosen of the Gods with the Empire Knights. And this will probably not be the end of them immediately, but it's the beginning of the end. Their leadership is probably going to start faltering, the amount of spears, and they can't really run from the Empire Knights. There are 17 of them here, so the Chad Sons of Sigmar are getting in there with 500 value, not terrible. So if we can get them to start crumbling, that's going to be really good value for us. So a little bit of fast forwarding here as my opponent clears out the objective. This was really potentially a game-losing play for me. It happened to me twice. I was standing over here and I used 2 fireballs, and they hit this hill twice. Those probably could have potentially brought Khalida down to death and would have maybe won me the game. So I realized that. I was like, why are my fireballs not hitting? And I noticed the second one hit that hill there. And, you know, terrain does play a factor here. So we're going to be running around the terrain, trying to line up a fireball. Meanwhile, we do get those. And now my opponent is Helm's Deeping on the objective. And I'm like, okay, this is scary. He does have no more heals on the Necrotech, but he does have this really insane item called the Van Braces of the Sun, which is going to be lowering the stats of my units, which is really, really nasty when he hits me. So I'm going to be getting a full surround here. So from here, you can see I'm using a couple fireballs. I'm going to be posturing for a full surround to collapse in on his army here. I do manage to do this, but man, he is so cagey. He uses his Bone Giant to block my fireball. So you can see I do get a really good fireball in that unit right there, but the Bone Giant's going to be lining up here, and yeah, he is just going to start screening me. So I'm on foot. I can't really outmaneuver him here. I'm trying to like see if, and you can see he's microing his units behind them. I was like, oh, you dirty dog. But we move in. And this is going to be the alpha strike here. So we move in with everything. We do Bone Giant, does hit their fireball, but it hits the Bone Giant in the back. And now the spears are going to be battling, but his characters are really a problem here. I need to get rid of this damn Necrotech. Its leadership's so low, and a big terror route. And I was like, oh god, am I actually going to lose this? No way. So the spears move back in. He's starting to get his own victory tickets. Balance of power goes back to the middle, ladies and gentlemen. Incredibly dodgy. But the spears of Sigmar, will they hold in this extremely close duel of fates? The Necrotech crumbling is big. It's going to get rid of the debuff, which has been hurting my units. Khalida is currently sitting at 700 HP, and the Haggard Battle Popes are in here. So we got the Light Wizard, we got the Bright Wizard, and I am just hoping that their Pimp Canes, their old 300 weapon strike attacks will be enough to get Khalida a little bit lower. At which point I could trigger army losses and hopefully get the game secured. So my Light Wizard is going to be terrified and broken. I have a couple Flagellants in there, and by a couple, I literally mean a couple. There's 2 of them. Khalida is sitting at 600 HP. I'm leaving this spear back here to replenish their vigor, because having, you know, more in a blob isn't really going to help. So I'm just trying to rest them. This is kind of an old school tactic in land battles. And here we can see Khalida's getting ground down, 200 HP, 192. She's looking really, really beat up here. And the Harry Potter Goon Squad has emerged. They're getting in there with their Flagellants. Khalida's starting to crumble, 60 HP. She's down for the count. And yeah, geez. This was stressful. And at the last second, I thought I was going to lose, despite him having army losses, because all I have left are 2 Flagellants, a Bright Wizard, and these spears. So if I didn't have these Flagellants and these spearmen terror routed right now, I would lose the game. I would have no units fighting, and it would lose for me. I was like, holy shit. But these Chad Flagellants basically stopped that from happening, and I realized it, so I stopped running. I start running. I'm like, get me the hell out of here. These guys need to run, and that guy needs to disintegrate faster, and thankfully we didn't have it. So we were able to get the dub. Super close, scrappy game. Really fun one, and I hope you guys enjoyed that one. So yeah, the Steam Tank Commander, 1600 on him, Bright Wizard 1200, and yeah, the cannon did good. A couple faults in the build though. I think the Tank Commander, just go with Boris. Boris was what I used to bring back in Warhammer 2 competitive when I was playing tournaments and stuff. Usually be Boris. Yeah, the Hawk and Long Rifles also felt lackluster. I think maybe just like another cannon would be fine. Like double cannon with Boris Todbringer, and then use that extra money to get like another Empire Knight, or maybe silver bullets, because at least they're stealth and they can like sneak up and, you know, pop good shots where they need to. Obviously, I played with a bit of a handicap, having all the spells and not cutting any of the abilities. I probably would have had an extra 2 spears in my army, which would have probably made a huge difference. But yeah, little things. And for my opponent's build, it's a good sniping build. It's very strong. You just not, you know, you just goon things methodically with this. And Khalida honestly did pretty well too, at 2,000 value there. So GG, well played. We'll see you guys around. Hopefully you enjoyed a little Conquest. And that is going to be it for today.